What's going on, guys? I hope that you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about Megalopolis, the brand new Francis Ford Coppola film that I finally got around to seeing, and boy, do I have thoughts about this, to say the least. But listen, for those of you that don't know, Francis Ford Coppola, one of the most legendary filmmakers of all time, right? He's probably on the Mount Rushmore, the top four, directors ever. This is the thing. He self-financed this movie. I'm pretty sure that it was about $120 million to make. He sold part of his winery, I'm pretty sure. And this film in its first weekend made $4 million. It's one of the largest bombs ever. From there, the early reactions were pretty horrible, and it was one of my most anticipated films of the year. But once I realized what it was, once it started to get just god-awful reviews, I was not interested. But then, and that's the reason that I'm actually reviewing this kind of late, then I watched a clip online from this movie. They released an official clip to try to promote the movie. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, that this was a $120 million movie that was made like this, that I actually felt the need to go see it. And I was actually interested again. So last night I went to check it out, and let's talk about it. Now, a lot of the early reviews for this movie were basically calling it one of the worst films that they've ever seen, or at least one of the weirdest films that they've ever seen, but also a small majority were calling it a misunderstood masterpiece. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is probably the most difficult time, the hardest time that I've ever had reviewing a movie, because I just don't know what to think about Megalopolis. But one thing that I will say, this is pretty easily the most insane, bold movie that I've ever seen in my entire life. Easily, without a doubt. I think about other weird or, crazy movies like maybe The Lighthouse, right? That's trying to be very metaphorical. But at least in that film, there's a plot. And sure, things start to unravel, things start to get very metaphorical and, very open-ended as the film progresses, but I still know what's going on in the movie. For those of you that don't know, Megalopolis is about this guy named Caesar, who's played by Adam Driver, that's trying to develop this new city called Megalopolis, inside of Manhattan, because it's not meant to replace New York City. It's a city that's going inside of the city, and he has these new plans. It's going to be revolutionary. But the thing is, this plot that I just described to you is realistically only 5 to 10% of the runtime of the film. That much that they actually, spend talking about this. So there's kind of no plot. It's kind of trying to bounce around and do a bunch of different things and set up these political ideas, and it's wacky, it's wild, and I know that sounds kind of crazy, but let me dive into some more of the technical aspects so that we could hopefully come to a conclusion here on what I even would rate this film, because I'm having a hard time even giving this movie a rating. Let's dive into the characters. I feel like that's a very easy place to start. You've got a lot of big name actors in here. You've got Adam Driver playing Caesar, the main character. When it comes to Caesar, right, half the movie, he's kind of just a normal businessman, I don't know, in his 40s. That's it, he has a serious tone to him. But the other half, for no reason, he's just this wacky guy saying the most outrageous things, doing the craziest dances or just out of character movements, and he'll either just randomly start dancing or he'll just say something in an accent for no reason. And I'm having a hard time trying to comprehend who this character really is, if he's the serious side or if he's the silly side. Keep in mind, it's not like he's this complex layered character that has multiple personalities. No, it's just weird. It's just weird. And I know that I'm going to probably overuse that word in this video, but you just got to bear with me here. From there, you've got Aubrey Plaza, who's probably maybe the craziest character in this movie. She plays a character, and I'm not making this up, with the first name Wow and the last name Platinum. So her full name is Wow Platinum, like the metal. Don't ask me why. Her performance, this is the most Aubrey Plaza that you'll ever get Aubrey Plaza to be. This feels like the most satirical that she will ever go. She's playing basically this, I don't want to say sarcastic, but just this weird conniving woman that's kind of trying to get the fortunes of these men, these rich men. But the plot is so all over the place that you don't really understand what she's trying to do realistically. And even by the end, there's a slight resolution to what her goal is. I'm honestly at a loss for words. This is the hardest video that I've probably ever had to make. She's just a weird character. The things that she says, it's unbelievable, but it's also so funny for that same reason. The other character that I wanted to mention is Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf is kind of making his return here to the big screen with this film. he's probably the craziest character in this movie. I know that I said Aubrey Plaza might be the craziest. He's easily the craziest. He plays this guy. He's Caesar, like Adam Driver's cousin. So they actually, did give a bit of information because, again, this movie really does the bare minimum when it comes to giving you information about what's going on. He's his cousin, and he's like always trying to go against him, and he has shaved eyebrows for most of the movie. Half of the movie he's wearing a dress, and he's constantly trying to get with his cousins / his sister, and he's doing crazy things, and also he's trying to get with his aunt, who's Wow Platinum, played by Aubrey Plaza. They have one scene together that's so insane on both a sexual level and a comedic level, but this is the problem with this movie, okay? And this is what I kind of need to go over here, okay? The entire film as a whole is sort of poetic, but it's almost like they didn't know what the poem was trying to say. In a way, it's almost trying to be just like Shakespearean and so bold, but there's also just no plot line whatsoever, or they're trying to tell you that there's a plot, but they're not actually showing you what the plot is. I want to bounce over also to the dialogue, because 1/3 is blatant exposition. Like, hey, I am this character and I am trying to do this, and I'm not joking, I mean literally exposition. Like, a character will say, well, I'm blank and I want to do this. That's 1/3 of the movie, okay? That's the only third that actually kind of tells you what's going on, sort of, or at least in a scene it'll tell you what's going on. The other third is characters just saying the most random, like out of left field stuff that you've ever heard in your life. And then the other third is going back to the Shakespeare element, just quotes and, philosophical ideas, but they're going at such a rapid pace that there's no time to just sit and think about what they're saying. Also, because it's the 21st century, it's kind of hard to understand what they're saying. And speaking of what they're saying, I actually want to talk about the worst element of this film, and I know that I haven't really said that things in this movie, like the characters being weird, are necessarily good or necessarily bad, because it's just so hard to tell, and I'm having such a hard time processing it. The worst element of this movie is the world building. This is probably the worst world building that I've ever seen in any movie ever, without a doubt. There are certain films that have god-awful world building, but this movie without a doubt does it the worst, because the world building, the world that we're in here, which is New Rome, okay? Like the city in Italy, New Rome. It's just New York City, right? Which is okay, that's fine. You could rename it. But this New York City, right? For half the movie, half the clips and the shots they're showing is just modern New York City. The reason that I would know that is because I honestly live somewhat close to New York City, and I have been there endless times. I know what New York City looks like in the 21st century, in 2024. So half of the shots that they're showing are just of people in normal clothes, just walking around, kind of doing normal things, and our characters are near them. But then the other half of the movie, our characters are basically just walking around in ancient Roman garments, and then they enter something like a Madison Square Garden, but then on the inside of the building, it's like an ancient Roman Colosseum. Nothing makes sense. There's this one auction scene that's meant to be, don't even ask me why, but it's like an auction for a virgin. I don't know what's going on. Don't kill the messenger. But when they stick up their auction cards, right, and keep in mind it's supposed to be like ancient Rome, but also infused with modern times, they have QR codes on them, and it just looks so cheap, and it looks like this is like a Temu movie that I'm watching here. It's horrible. It's just so bad, the world building here. Megalopolis, the city that Adam Driver's trying to make here, spoiler, he kind of does make it towards the end of the movie, but it's not really like he's transforming New York City. It's more like he's just putting a city inside of Central Park, but this city doesn't even look like a city. It more just looks like these big flowers that people are kind of walking in. And again, I understand this movie's trying to be very bold and very dramatic, but it's not even, it doesn't feel like it's attempting to be satire or a parody. It feels like it plays everything serious. From there, the editing is very choppy, it's very weird, but the funniest part, of the editing at least, because there are just so many funny elements to this film, but all the funny elements are not meant to be funny, that's the thing. My whole theater was laughing. With the editing, it feels like it's very choppy, but sometimes we'll just have, and I can't even make this up, like a Family Guy cutaway to just something random for a minute. We'll be showing Caesar or Adam Driver, our main character, talking to somebody. It'll cut away for a minute to like some random gag of like some parade member trying to get seduced by a woman, then it'll cut back to like the main story, or at least I should just say like the main characters. It's so odd, it's so baffling the way that the editing literally just cuts away then cuts back. The shots in here and the CGI is pretty bad. I mean, that's fine though, whatever. But when it comes to these shots, right, there will be a shot that is just so unbelievably gorgeous, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I see what they're trying to do here. Followed by and edited next to one of the worst shots that like you'll ever see in your life, and you're like, what's going on here? Again, it's not like the plot's really trying to do anything here, even though they try to almost tell you like, hey, there is a plot, trust us. It's very weird. And another thing that I forgot to mention, somehow, some way, Caesar, our main character, can stop time whenever he wants to. I don't know how I didn't bring this up earlier. Whenever Caesar wants to, and this is established in the first 20 seconds of the film, he can stop time. He could just say, stop, and then everyone around him stops, but he can keep moving. This is explored maybe once or twice for the rest of the movie after the first 30 seconds. Isn't this like a groundbreaking, world-changing thing that would tie directly into the plot? He can he can stop time, I should say, and he can do whatever he wants while everyone's paused. They barely bring that up. It's barely a part of the plot. So if that wasn't in the movie, nothing would change. The best way I could describe this movie, if this makes any sense, I'm gonna give my attempt to try to explain it to you as best as possible, because I'm really struggling here. This is probably like one of the worst videos I've ever made, because I feel like I'm just rambling around. If you went to the bathroom, right? This movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think. If you went to the bathroom for 30 minutes at any point of this movie, literally any point, if you missed the first 30 minutes, if you missed 30 minutes in the middle, if you missed even the final 30 minutes, I think that me and you would have had the same viewing experience if I watched the whole movie. Because everything is so disjointed and out of order, and there's no sequence of events or order of events really going on here, that we'd probably have the same experience, and we'd both leave the theater pretty much with the same thoughts, saying, wow, that was pretty wacky. I just would have seen more wackiness than you did. It's crazy, but this is the thing, and this is kind of where I'm trying to tie back to. In a way, I kind of liked it because of how unorthodox and how I don't want to say anti-Hollywood because that sounds kind of cringe, but like, it's really going for it, but I just don't know what it is. I know, and that's what's kind of beautiful to me, is because even though I don't understand what this movie's about, if you put a gun to my head right now and said, I'll give you 30 seconds or a minute, explain the plot overall. I know I gave you like a little recap in the beginning, but I mean like start to end, I couldn't do it for my life. But I kind of liked it. I kind of liked how bold it was, because sometimes I'm just watching the most insane things unravel on screen, and even though I don't really understand why they're happening, it's just kind of cool to see like crazy actors just going for it on screen here. Like Shia LaBeouf, when he's playing off of Aubrey Plaza, it's wild. Like, it's just craziness. It's unbelievable. So there's just so many moments in here to where like, it's almost so bad it's good, but it's still kind of bad, but it's also kind of unironically good. It's confusing and it's a mess in my brain. But guys, if I'm gonna give this movie a final rating, wait, before I give my final rating, I just need to go over one scene really quick that really paints the picture of what this movie is as well. Sorry, just really quick, then I'll give my final rating. There's just one scene, and I'm not spoiling anything, don't worry, where Caesar kind of has like this little expo that he's setting up to try to show what Megalopolis is going to be. So he has some like test things that you could like try out, and he's like, yeah, this is gonna be in Megalopolis, this is gonna be in Megalopolis. There's this one contraption that he came up with, and he's like, oh, this contraption, when you step on it, it'll bring you to your local park in about 5 minutes. So he holds this woman's hand, right? And it's on the floor. It's kind of just like this pathway, okay? She steps on it, and then she moves about 15 yards, then she steps off of it. It's basically just what they have in airports. You know, in airports, when they have the moving floors, like the floors that move, I don't know what they're called. It's almost like an escalator, but just flat, and it just moves you across the floor. That's what he invented. And it just cuts away from her because in reality, like, I feel like Frances knew that it wasn't that impressive. So she steps on this device, doesn't move. It pushes her 15 meters in front of her, Then she steps off and she's like, wow, this is the future. They have that in airports. If you've been to any airport that you've ever experienced ever, that's what it was like. It's like the People Mover in Disney World. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It reminds me of that. Like you just step on something, it moves you, and then you step off. How is that supposed to be the future? Why would you reinvent an entire city just for that? In the movie, it's a lot funnier. I don't know if I'm describing it properly, but I don't know what this movie's trying to be. My final rating of the film, because this is the thing, on paper, in my heart of hearts, this movie's a 1 out of 10. This is arguably the worst movie I've ever seen. But in a way, it's kind of good. And for that reason, because it's just trying to be so bold and that my eyes were just glued to the screen, and the fact that 3 or 4 people left the movie in the middle of the film while I was watching it and didn't return, I think that I'm gonna go with a 2.5 stars. A 2.5. A very conflicted 2.5, because this is the thing. There's a lot of movies that I give 3 stars or 3.5 stars that at the end of the day, I forget about. They're just long gone. Whenever someone mentions them, oh yeah, that was fine. But this movie, as bad as it was, as bold as it was, it's gonna leave me thinking. I'm still gonna be thinking about it. Maybe not the ideas that it brought up, but maybe just the movie itself. But yeah, guys, that's gonna just about do it for this video. I'm gonna be honest, this is probably the worst review that I've ever made because I am struggling to come up with any type of concept to even talk about with this film. In a way, I'd almost recommend you guys go see it because it's so hard to describe. It really is hard to describe what I watched. It's not straightforward in the slightest. Whatever the opposite of straightforward is, that's what it is. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.